Naomi, I think your regular profile is so much cuter than that one.
And that's the first thing on our recording, of course.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
That totally needed to be recorded anyway.
Welcome to the Crazy AT Town Hall for whatever day, Monday, March 29th. I am sitting in for our friend Mike, who had some things he had to take care of. So I guess let's open it up like we always do for anything good happening. And then I've got some links to share from our AT-ing event. So anybody have any questions or things that they want to share that are good that are going on? Somebody, nobody, everybody?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around stuff. I'm like,
we had a really great lesson picks training in our district last week, and we're going to be purchasing some more lesson picks licenses, so that's a win.
It was a fun group to train too, so that was good. Yeah.
Are you, Sarah, are you using it for teachers, for just SLPs, for who's your users?
We are using it for SLPs, OTs, special ed teachers. So people are really liking it so far, which is great.
How many licenses did you guys purchase? Can I ask?
Right now we're up to 20 because we've been using Boardmaker, and so we're kind of transitioning people off of that. So some people still wanted to stick with it this year, but we're hoping to do more trainings over the summer and get people transferred over.
Yeah, because we just asked Boardmaker for a refund.
Well, Irene, feel free to reach out to me and we will give
Will
you
be.
for lesson picks.
Yeah. No, you're on my list of people to call. So I thought you guys could do that. I thought that would make a good Monday morning,
That's always a good Monday morning for lesson picks, at least.
Yeah.
That's for sure a good Monday morning. Yeah. And I know that there have been lots of difficulties, let's just say, with Boardmaker.
And this isn't the forum for one versus the other, but yes.
But feel free to reach out to Beth.
I will. Sorry, this wasn't the forum for that.
No,
it's fine. I think it's great. I mean, I think if I wasn't on here, you guys would be totally being able to talk about it. I'm just saying, I'm glad to hear all that stuff, and I think it's valuable to.
Yeah, we were able to jump in the beginning of the school year with everything COVID happening, and we were able to get 50 licenses. And in addition to our speech and OT, the other place that has really kind of jumped in is our hospital homebound teachers, especially of our kids that have more significant needs. Sometimes they're kind of floating out there, and being able to grab something really quick that they can utilize and go with. They really enjoyed it so far. So that's one of those little pocket groups that I feel like sometimes gets forgotten.
Yeah.
I just recently watched Beth, the ATIA, I think it was Amazing Visuals A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
So helpful. Just all these ideas came. It was amazing.
Thanks. It was a fun one to do. I'm actually doing it for the Patton's Expo in a couple of weeks, which
the 15th.
So it's a fun one. I try to make it strategy based, not just talking, there are a lot of things I talk about you could do with any resource, but I'm going to frame it with lesson picks. So
yeah, I guess I use lesson picks, but I didn't realize all the languages you could translate to. That was super helpful. Thanks.
So on an alternative sort of related topic, we did get our district uses Boardmaker, but we've met with Beth and we will probably do a combination of both actually in the future. But we are, since I'm the administrator of our Boardmaker account, they did give us one free year to go with all the issues. So I'm kind of excited because there's less pressure to switch to lesson picks. And I think we can provide both. So the money I would have allocated for Boardmaker, I can now jump right into lesson picks, and we can do a really nice trial of both for and see what people prefer at the end of that year. And I think, just with the pandemic, we have tried not to switch too much products because people are so overwhelmed. So that again puts less pressure on people to make that switch, but can sort of dabble in both. And we'll see where we end up at the end of next school year and what our recommendations will be for a budget. But that was a question that I had for everybody, and I thought would be sort of an interesting topic to discuss. I know this is the time of like AT budgets having to get done, and I'm curious what other people and other districts include in their budget. I don't know if people feel comfortable sharing what their AT budget is, and there's different sizes of districts. If you have a budget, we're fortunate to have one in my district. And we have a director, a special ed director, who's been very generous with funds. So that's some of what we budget for are those visual support software, our Read and Write for Google subscription. We usually budget for iPads, and we've been lucky that we've been able to every year we purchase about 10. Some years we have extra money and we can purchase more than that, but to keep sort of replenishing as they get older or things happen to them. I try to keep that as something that's an annual line item. We've been able, like now is the time where communication apps go on sale. So I include communication apps in my budget. In the past, we purchased, I've included enough money to get 20 copies so that when they're in that volume purchasing program, we can get them for even less. But then we always have money for just regular random apps that come up that might be needed on a case-by-case basis. We budget for core boards, like printed core boards. We budget for mid-tech type supplies, switches, our line item in our budget. So curious what other people do.
Yeah, my previous district has assistive technology as a line item budget, and so it's a part of that. One thing just to sort of add to this is, because I just went to a webinar on it, is because of the CARES Act and the American Recovery Plan, there is a big chunk of money that school districts are going to be getting, and it includes directly in the language of it that some of it that it's intended for to support learning loss, special education, and assistive technology is included in there. So just for folks to know, as what you're getting with your budget is that schools are going to be getting the same way that they got ARA funds, back in whatever that was, 2010, 2011, that they're going to be getting. And apparently the funding is much larger than the ARA funds.
You have a link, Beth, somewhere to a source or
see, I don't know that I have a link that I can share yet. It was, some of the information was shared.
I would love to see that in writing.
Yeah, to vendors. I mean, you can look up some of the information. I don't think it's public information. I can let me try and search and see if I can find something.
Yeah, I just always like to be able to say,
yeah,
here's where it specifically
right.
highlights.
Let me see if I can find.
And if anybody's willing to share exactly what Jennifer was talking about, what she budgets for, I would be interested in looking at that, because I think finally we're going to have a line item, and I'm sure we don't want to try to miss anything.
Well, and I know sometimes, if you don't use it, it's gone, and they reabsorb it maybe the next year if they see that you didn't use it. Anybody else want to share about, Jennifer? That's a great question about what people budget for, what their budget is. I have always tried to get apps when the sales come, and whether we get them pushed through in time or not, sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes some of the companies don't accept POs for the sale, which complicates things on our end. So I did put a link in the chat, both to Lauren's directly to the design. Lauren Enders kind of pulls together all that information every year, which is really helpful for us. And then I put a link to just her tweet if you wanted to share that tweet itself or share it with somebody. So it kind of has the array of all of the vendors that she was able to find and gather and get information for. And some of them are now and some of them are in April. I think some of them just kind of bridge the gap between both. So it has that. I guess I'm fortunate. Like it's not like I really have a line item, but if we say we need this or we want this, or, every once in a while there is a, like, we really need to buy this. And, oh, since we're buying this, could we also get some more of A, B, and C? Like, so we're paying one shipping cost. Sometimes that happens. But it's not like it's like, okay, here's your X dollars amount that you can spend every year, go spend it. I don't know if that's better or worse than having a line item.
So we have a set amount that we get and it gets approved. And we actually have to rank based on need, like 1, 2, or 3. And so our subscription type things like Read and Write for Google, those are always a 1 because we want those things to continue. But then, some of the equipment that we want to purchase, maybe mid-tech devices or switches, those things, as long as it's not like an absolute need of something that we have, maybe we just want to replace older devices, then I usually list that as a 2. Right now, we're at that point where we have to spend down our budget, like Beth said. And so I always go to, when I submit my budget for next year, I always say in my email, if you have any extra money, we can purchase X, Y, and Z this year. And so that's actually what we did. And
little wish list.
Yeah. And so now our director has some extra money that has to get spent down so it doesn't get reabsorbed. And so we're updating some of our mid-tech devices that just have gone bad over the years, Big Macs and step-by-steps, and those things don't always last forever. So we'll do some of that. Like we wanted more proximity switches, switch toys. We're always looking for stuff that's more engaging that we can push out to our programs. And oftentimes that stuff lives there in our programs, and so we don't get it back. So as we find things that are really popular that people like, then we try to order more so that we can get them out to more programs. So and then we always have a line item for repairs and supplies. So even just batteries and printing goes on our budget so that, we never feel guilty about color printing or anything like that when we need it. So we're pretty lucky. When I first started, our budget was pretty small, and I just keep asking for more. I mean, the worst they're going to do is tell me no. So. And I'm no worse off than I was.
You ever have a problem getting a communication app?
Do I ever have a problem?
Does anybody? I mean, we have an issue with trying to get LAMP right now. But.
Yeah,
I sat in on our iPad committee and a lot of our technology department meetings when I first started in the district. And so a lot of that legwork that I did on getting apps and then conforming to processes that they wanted done really helped out. So we have to check data privacy, and we have to have a whole bunch of forms filled out from their end. So now we've got all those, and now our technology department pretty much just orders stuff when we need it. So
it's important too that we've been able to get other communication apps. It's just that all of a sudden they wanted to know why we wanted LAMP because in our district what we are doing is we have related service iPads reserved for the related service staff, and then we put LAMP word chat or Core First. At the moment they're all running together, but put all the communication apps on there, and then they use those as the trial for the students. And then if the SOP decides that Snap Core First is the app that they want, then we have that put on the iPad for the student. But we've been denied LAMP right now. They've approved everything else. We've been denied LAMP because they want to know if there's something cheaper, like they want something cheaper instead of LAMP. And we already have like 16 of those lined up to go on our iPads. So we're kind of like, okay, these SLPs did the work and said that this is, you know, the app that's going to work best for the student. And so I think we were all kind of shocked. We're like, what? What do you mean you're not going to approve this? You approved all the other communication apps, but now all of a sudden they want us to use something.
Well, if their only argument is price, I would push and say, hey, you know what? It's going to be 50% off the first week of April. So you do your legwork, purchasing department, and you get it set up. And basically it ends up being a 2-for-1 deal on, you know, in terms of 50% off. You know, if you end up being able to get that total quantity, like if that is their sole reason, and I don't know, I kind of have an ethical problem with price being the reason, especially if you've done trials and data collection. Like, it's not like you're just saying, we think it's the right one. We've already done trials and data collection. So I mean, I would also rally whoever it is, maybe above you or, you know, that can speak to them and just say, hey, look, we've done our due diligence. I mean, you don't want to have to go the route of saying we're writing it in a kid's IEP and therefore you need to provide it, because you don't ever want to put LAMP words for life in an IEP. Like, you want to put, you know, describe it and give us some features. But I feel like if price is their only consideration, I would say, okay, that's, you know, whatever, that's next week, right? I would say, okay, push for it and say, if price is your issue, it will be $150 next week. You buy it then.
And I think you mentioned that you needed 16 copies. So if you need 16 copies and you use the volume purchasing program, then you can get it for $75 a piece.
Right. I think you have to have 20 copies.
20, yeah. It's worth buying. Yeah, I was going to say, then it's worth buying the 4 extra copies and getting to 20 to push it through the VPP. And hopefully they have done a wide app process for other things. So then you can say to them, okay, look, not only am I saving you 50%, it's basically going to end up being 75% off if you can push it through 20 copies under the volume purchasing.
Right. And when we presented it to them, it was for 20. Yeah, it's just a tough thing, because I mean, everybody on our team here completely agrees with you, because we don't think the price should be the reason why we say no, especially if there's 16 kids waiting for it. But it's
right. And you understand, like, okay, I just learned over time that IT departments just, they look at things through a different lens. So it's almost like Jennifer was saying, like being on a committee or earning some good graces does help you in that scenario, because then you can go back and say, you know, okay, look, you know, I know your process. I'm following your process. I'm doing what you're asking me to do. If you're asking, is there anything else like LAMP that's cheaper? Honestly, the answer is no. You know, like to me, the easy way to answer that, and yeah, Jennifer's asking in the chat, who is saying no? Is it your department, or is it just purchasing? Is it IT?
No, it's our supervisor.
It's our supervisor.
Our supervisor, and he signs off on it. And our supervisor is saying no.
I think I would probably go the route of maybe collecting some of the data from some of the therapists that have used it, and really talk to your supervisor about sort of that set process or that needs assessment, and why that app is so important and what's different about it than the other apps that you have access to. So if you're really looking at, you know, that sort of that needs assessment and, you know, comparing and contrasting the different apps. I mean, maybe it's just as simple as that supervisor needs a little bit more education about the differences between those apps.
Yeah. We'll keep trying.
I know my special ed director would have no idea about the difference between apps. I'm just lucky she really trusts me and knows that, you know, I'm doing the right thing. So, but I think, you know, if I had to, I would go back and talk about that process of how I've evaluated the app and what features, that feature match process, what features are really needed in LAMP for those students.
Thank you.
And another thing that I've done like the beginning of like 5 years ago when I started the AT position is that sometimes I would get pushback just because they didn't understand what it was. And the same thing, they would be like, well, I don't know, there's like free AAC apps out there. Why can't you use those? And so then I also said, like, I can go through like funding. I can put this through Medicaid or the student's insurance, but then you're going to have to give me like the time to write the report. And I basically just didn't back down and kind of was like, went into it pretty confidently and said, the student absolutely needs this. There's no way that they can succeed in their academic environment if they don't have this tool. And I'm going to get it for them one way or another. And so then they're like, okay, here, we'll get you 20 licenses.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to say that Sarah kind of brought out was like, have you ever made an appointment with whoever, supervisor, whoever, and been like, okay, these are the options this is why we would choose this app. This is why we would choose this app. Because I think there is sometimes a notion that like one app really does fit everybody, which is totally, you guys know, totally and completely not the case. And kids for which LAMP works, maybe, SnapCord First doesn't, or, they really could use Speak for Yourself, but, not LAMP. Like, I think until people know really what components of it make it unique and really what it does, they've kind of clustered it in their head as, well, why on earth is this app so expensive?
Well, thanks. We'll try some of that and see where we get.
Fantastic. So I'm going to put again in the chat, Naomi shared at the very beginning the compiled video of our little adventure of ATing using Kumo Space. And then I'm going to put in the chat the Wakelet that we pulled together kind of from that day. So you guys can share out kind of the experience. So I don't know if there was anybody who participated as a participant that wanted to share how it went from their end. I know we have some presenters, but were Irene or Anya or anybody, were you guys able to participate with us that day?
Yeah, it was great. I guess like wasn't like 5 minutes. It was more like 10 or 15 minutes. And then sometimes I was like, well, I don't know when to exit. And then you'd enter new room kind of mid presentation, which was fine because you could catch up, but it was sort of unclear about like start and stop. But it was super helpful. And I loved sort of getting a gist of so many different topics. I think the idea is really fantastic. And I know that there was like some glitches with sharing slides and stuff, but that was the only thing was, okay, can I leave now? Cause I know, I didn't want to be rude and I knew that there was other things that I wanted to see. So that was the only.
The answer is you could always leave. And something like that, like, I don't know, from the presenter's perspective, like I want you to get
as a presenter, you can always leave. Nobody's insulted. Just, it's the rule of 2 feet. Or mouse click or whatever.
Yeah. Whatever the translation is in internet world. But yeah, like from the presenter side, nobody's going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she left partway through our presentation. How rude. Like, no, we want you to be able to get, I knew people that jumped in for like 2 minutes of each of them during part of the session because they could only stay for the first half.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Don't ever think we're going to be like, oh, how dare she?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a gist of everything. So
yeah. And I know from the technical end, we're going to probably try to have a meeting with them, with Kumo Space folks, and just be like, here's our experience. Here's the things we had difficulty with. We'd love to continue using your platform, but we need you to help with these things. And one of them was getting the broadcast all to work so that like Mike was supposed to announce like right when it was time to switch, basically broadcast into every room to announce that, which I think would have helped Anya to clarify on your end. Like, is it time to go? Is it not time to go? So like, I think he reverted to using the chat, but like, if you didn't have the chat up, you wouldn't necessarily know that he had sent a message to other rooms. So I think there was that kind of, I don't know, logistical thing, which like we didn't expect it to go 100% smoothly because nothing does the first time you do something like this. Like that's just the way it works. Sarah or Beth, anything from you from the presenters end? Sorry, I know Sarah, you were doing things.
I mean, it it was fun. It was just a little, it was part of it was learning, learning a new tool. It's learning a new tool. So, we were building the airplane as we were flying it, sort of. Didn't really know the tool that well, but it was cool, and I loved being able to like interact a little differently, maybe a little more casually. The screen sharing was the challenge for me, because I would share my screen, and then if somebody came in from someplace else after I shared my screen, then they couldn't see the screen sharing.
Yeah, that was a little weird. We're not sure why. If you hadn't been in the room when you shared the screen, like you'd think it would just pop up for them. So it's on our list of things to ask them about, because I had that problem too.
I liked it. I felt like it took like extra mental energy just because I wasn't as comfortable in that platform. And so then I was like more nervous. Like, am I sharing my sound right and my screen right? And like saying everything that I want to say and recording it. So it was like kind of a tough 5 minutes, but it was fun. And it was like, I felt like it was good to kind of shake things up from just like our traditional Zoom world. So I did like it.
Yeah, I had a hard time getting my head in presenter space because it was the first day of my spring break. And I was like, okay, rally your brain. You can do this.
Yeah. And I did have one participant say that 5 minutes was way too short. So I liked it being quick and to the point.
And to the point. Yeah, I think it has positives and negatives. So we had a conversation with a couple of people on Twitter, Mike and I, about making kind of like a monthly lunch and learn in Kumo Space. So like it would be like maybe one of these Mondays a month, instead of doing AT Town Hall, we do like a lunch and learn. And we had talked about, instead of it being like, here's 10 different options, be like, okay, here's 2 or 3 topics, and we're going to spend 15 minutes on each of them, which I think would help the presenter anxiety I felt about like, okay, let me spit out everything I know about whiteboard.chat in 5 minutes, ready, go. So I think that might help. I don't know. What do you guys think about doing something like that as a lunch and learn scenario? I see lots of thumbs up. I like that.
I also kind of think that it might help if it was less of until we have a better sense of exactly how this works with moving from room to room and everything, maybe even just the idea of having it be more like everybody together in the same space, but it's just a different kind of a lunch and learn,
Well,
there's different, these are the 3 people maybe that are going to be speaking for 10 or 15 minutes each.
Yeah, and we could also, one of the things we could do is leave that little sound radius on to where it's close conversation, and technically everybody could be in one room, and 10 of you could be back by the pool, 10 of you could be in the front of the room, 10 and you could do, now from a screen sharing perspective, you wouldn't really be able to screen share multiple people couldn't screen share at once. But if it was just conversation based, if it was just, let's talk about funding apps, here's your little corner of the room. And then, at 10 minutes, you could switch to another one, or you could stay in this conversation. Like, I think it would lend itself better to conversational topics, kind of like we would do in a true ed camp, where people aren't sharing their screen, people aren't they? It's, top 5 strategies for, I don't know, dealing with your district. Like, let's go have a conversation about that or something. So I agree, Beth. Putting us all in one room, I think maybe would help some of the, like, get used to the platform anxieties. Where do I go? How do I get there? You don't have to leave a room. It's just like move your little self around to another spot and eavesdrop on a conversation, decide whether you want to be in it and stay there. Any other thoughts about things that we could or should do differently?
I mean, I'm just kind of still thinking about the previous question. I mean, I think we could totally do like one of these, like in a Kumo space, because we're not really sharing screen. We are having conversations, and it would just be a different way of everybody sort of seeing everybody a little differently. Like, you know, whereas I can't necessarily see it, you know, depending on how I don't know, I have speaker pin. That's just annoying for me, myself. But I think, you know, so that's just kind of another way to do things too.
What does Kumo Space have for closed caption?
So right now, nothing. We were utilizing, when we were sharing our screen, we were utilizing either Google Captions, the built-in Chrome captioning now, or if you're sharing your slides, you could utilize the built-in captions in Google Slides. So what would have to happen on our end if we're not doing a shared screen scenario is that we'd have to say to people, here's the version of Chrome you need to be on for auto captioning, and here's how you have to make it happen. The weird thing we found about auto captions in Chrome is that it doesn't caption you as a speaker. It captions everybody else's sound. So it must be captioning like what's coming out of the speaker, not your microphone. So it doesn't matter because you don't necessarily need to have your own thing captioned to be able to understand, but it just, there's like blips in the conversational mode because it skips over whatever you're saying. Does that make sense? So they're aware of it, and I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon that there is a built-in option, because I know that's one of the first things Kelly said to them was, hey, we like your platform, but it needs captions. What else is going on in people's worlds?
So I'm assuming people that are here are not necessarily on spring break. I see people, like I see Jen and Sarah in their real offices, and
the Rockford group is definitely not on
Next
spring break
week.
unless they like to hang out there just, you know, for fun together.
Yeah, today's our first day back at work, so.
I'm feeling your pain. That's the same for me. So Sarah's next week.
Yep. Can't
So
wait.
I think a good discussion maybe going forward. I think a lot of schools are starting to get back, even the schools that many schools are starting to get more back. And I think maybe one of the conversations we might be starting to have is how is AT, how are things that were maybe put in place for virtual learning? How is that evolving as students are heading back to school? Are there things that are going back to the way it was? Are there things that are better because we put things in place? Are there, you know, like what's happening there? I mean, I know I'm changing how I train a little bit on lesson picks, like where I'd been so focused on, this is how you can use this as a teletherapy device. And now I'm changing it to, you know, you can use it this way for teletherapy, but you can also use it this way on an interactive whiteboard in your classroom setting. Like I'm having to think about that because what was all teletherapy, and now we're seeing, I know some places have been back sooner, but I think more and more places are coming back now after their spring breaks for the last quarter and or are doing hybrid.
I think we're doing that hybrid model. So we're finding how challenging that can be to do things both in person and virtually. And I think because of that hybrid model, people are doing a lot on the screen still because they have to be teaching in front of the screen. And so they're just projecting, you know, for the students that are in the class, but things really do still have to be sort of in that different sort of, just they can't all be like paper and pencil type tasks either. So it's been a challenge for our staff.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is going to make you feel better or for worse, but we've been doing high flex hybrid scenarios since September, and I think for a lot of our staff it's still a struggle. I mean, it's positive in that if a kid in your class or your class in your brick and mortar class has to quarantine, well, everything's already we use Canvas so that the class just converts to a fully digital class while those kids have to be on quarantine. So that's nice. But I think there's also the struggle constantly, you know, it's kind of forced teachers to think about how am I really setting up my lesson activities, my you know, both my teaching to students and what I'm requesting for them to respond, how I'm asking them to do that, because they have to manage both a kiddo at home or multiple kids at home and people in front of them. So in a lot of ways, it's opened up conversations about just good UDL practices for us. Like, okay, how can you design this activity, this lesson, this test, this whatever, so that you're not doing triple work, you're not preparing it multiple times, but at the same time, you're getting the information you need. But I mean, we've been at it for a couple months and we don't have perfect answers. So sorry. Not that that's encouraging, but.
And I just think also like the whole idea as far as like, what if we, there were things we were all saying that, wow, this opens up, as much as things are challenging, especially with some of our most significantly disabled kids, that for some of our kids with learning disabilities or who were just needed, who didn't like using technology when other people weren't using technology and things like that, that this kind of like really in certain ways leveled the playing field. Everybody was using technology. So what are we taking back from that to, I'm just interested in hearing, what are we taking back from that to, and maybe it's not the conversation all for right now, but I think this is a good conversation to have, like, how are things evolving and how do we keep the good things that we've learned? How do we keep the lessons learned going?
Does anybody have answers?
Or thoughts, maybe not answers, but thoughts. Because I don't have answers.
I mean, I know I'm a speech therapist and I work primarily with students with autism and then behavioral challenges. And it's a non-public school. So basically the local school districts fund us to work with the students. And our school, I just feel like is so archaic in its pedagogy and the way that we are teaching kids. And so my goal is to, and I have my assistive technology, whatever certificate. So I'm trying to create an AT program at our school. So we just started doing AAC assessments. We just got that on our certificate or our certification to be able to do that. But I've noticed that just using the students really have gravitated towards using a ton of technology, and it's like, well, yeah, that's something that kids have been doing for a long time. And I've noticed that like a lot of the teachers are using Pear Deck and different ways to sort of differentiate learning for our students, using more iPads. So I know like technology actually, I think will be something that will be carried over, hopefully. So that's something we were using worksheets for years and years and years. And so that's something that obviously, and then we don't understand why kids are having behavioral challenges. So I think that's something hopefully that everyone will learn and take with them. We're opening next week for the first time in a year. So we'll see.
I think, I guess I hope that it's driving conversation, even if it's not driving like fast change like we'd want to see, that it's at least driving conversation. And I think, unfortunately, I find that it's still like a student by student problem solving instead of being like, let's change the system. Like Anya was saying, like, let's, but systematic change is hard and it's time, like it's, I don't know, research is like what, 4 to 7 years to actually make change. So I think for us to look at what are the results of the pandemic and how is it positively or negatively affected how we integrate technology, whether it's assistive or not, I don't know that we're really going to know until 3 years down the road, because it just takes so long for positive change to happen. It takes a while for buy-in. It takes a while for a team or a district or whoever to get on board. So Beth, that's not really an answer.
No, and I think it's also about it. I think it really does point out too, like, you talk about habits being developed and how many days, how many months. This should have been enough, but now it's a matter of like completely changing the environments and all of that. Like, and how do we as AT professionals, how do we as AT professionals help propel the change that we've seen happen and make sure it sticks, right? Just thoughts.
Sorry, joining late, very late.
No,
What did I
No.
miss?
Nice to
Karen.
see you. Karen, I'll drop the links again in the chat box for the video of that they compiled of from the AT-ing event. We kind of talked through positives
yeah.
and negatives for that, and then the Wakelet, which I know you have the link to, but there's the video. Oh, thanks, Naomi. There's the video. So we've just kind of been talking through what happened with that. Some people have proposed maybe doing it as a monthly lunch and learn kind of thing, and one of these AT town halls a month, doing it in Kumo space instead. So we're just kind of talking. We're mic-less today, so we're
We are, even though he's there.
It's not really him. It's Naomi hiding.
It's the
as
less
him.
attractive version. It's the more attractive version.
Wait.
of Mike. It's the less attractive picture of Naomi.
Right.
You know, the other thing though is, how do we reach others beyond this particular group, the Twitter group, the AT Town Hall group? There's a lot of people, like Anya, you're new to this whole area. How do we attract, how do we get all of the other people practicing in this area of inclusive tech who we aren't connecting with, and we'd love to network with them as well?
And that has been a huge, amazing added change to my life, is having like a professional learning network, right? And so like I'm doing an in-service nurse school, and I would like to connect other educators with, people on Twitter that they can follow. Like, I feel like maybe there's sort of like a curve, it's like some people are very dialed into social media, and that is a way that they connect with other people outside their community. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where they just check their email. So I think just like educating people that there is this other world of amazing professionals that you can learn and grow with and from is a good start. And maybe, providing some resources for people to follow would be a good start, because then you start following some people that you're interested in that you met at a conference, and you're like, wow, they're great too. And suddenly, you're connected with many more people.
Yeah. And Mia and I have been talking with Mike, and we're in the process of getting kind of a expanded version of our social media training workshop that we did for ATIA done through their project. And I think maybe that would help, because then yes, you could attend live, but then it's available pretty much to anybody on YouTube for them to be able to get in. But there are also going to be people who, like, social media is not their thing. And I think those are the people I'm more worried about. How do we pull them in? Like Karen was saying, how do we help them know what's out there and what's available if they're not, if social media is not their thing, if they're I just check email, like, what format or what support is going to help pull them in?
Alyssa, actually, your ATIA training, I opened a Twitter account that, like, during your training at ATIA, because I wasn't into Twitter. I just, I use Facebook for groups and Instagram. And that's been amazing. But I just use it for the AT community, and I love it. So I think, like reaching the people in their community with like a short mini in-service on like how social media and the platforms can really be utilized for professional development is like a place to start.
Yeah. So that's hopefully the plan.
I'm
not going to speak for the Mike who's not here, but that's our plan going forward. Karen, sorry, I didn't mean to overspeak.
I'm sorry too. When you think how large the quiet listserv is, and we're not getting a lot of those people, and Irene, and I mean Holly and Jennifer, you guys, Kendra, Rockford Assistive Tech, I don't know who that is. I've been on Twitter since 2007, and for professional reasons. And I just wonder, some of you who are newer, like, what got you, how did you find out about it? How can we extend the reach, as Alyssa said?
How did you find us, Irene and our Rockford friends? I don't remember. Do you?
I'm always just looking around the net for new strategies or new options. And I think I just saw something about an AT town hall, and we were in remote. So you guys were doing it this way, and I thought, this is fabulous.
Yeah.
So, and then I've recommended it to other people that I know. But again, we're West Coast, so this is not our lunch, you know,
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Where are you, Irene? Where are you out of?
I work in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, okay, great.
And
Yeah, I
then-
mean, California I was just wondering, California is a huge state. Do we have any representation from California?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yes, we do.
Yay, Anya.
This one.
Yeah, but really, I don't know how, you know, if there's much beyond you. So you've got a huge possibility to really extend what's happening in your part of the
No
country.
pressure at all, Anya.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Take California
No,
on
but
your shoulders and
But your Odyssey, I think, is so typical for many people because you practiced for several years before you even learned about
found
this
the
whole area.
community. Yeah.
Mhm.
But even to learn about assistive technology in AAC, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I only learned about AT through working with an AT specialist for a student, and was like, what is this world? This is amazing. This could be used for so many kids. Why is it just for one kid? And then I dug more and was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get the certificate. And then I just am addicted and I can't get enough.
And I think that's one of the, I mean, when you look at I mean, I hate to think about different populations, but the reality is kids with cognitive disabilities, kids on the autism spectrum, they are so underserved by inclusive technology. And to me, it's educational malpractice. But
100%.
yeah. Jennifer, are you going to say something?
Yeah, I think it's interesting though. I think that, and we're having this, I work on some statewide committees for assistive technology in Wisconsin, and they're talking about doing sort of like a badge or a certificate or something for completing some sort of assistive technology work in our state. And I almost feel like, you know, you just said, Karen, like there's just so much that can be done, and we're probably that inclusive technology is underutilized. But I know in our district we have autism specialists, we have specialists that work with that ID population, we have, you know, like there's so many different people, and almost not that there's too many hands in the pot, but everybody has like a specialty, you know, and like where does it all come together, I guess. And I don't know. And I think, you know, like in attracting more people to these meetings, I don't think a lot of districts, at least like a lot of the smaller districts in Wisconsin, don't have an AT person. So it's usually, and I think Sarah Gregory is a good example of this, somebody who does it for a portion of their job, but they also have a caseload of students that they're working with. And so finding the time to do a lot of this professional development, I think is just really difficult. Whereas somebody in a full-time position like me, I get to make my own schedule. And, you know, if I want to, I have this on my calendar every week, and I try to make an effort of coming to it, but not everybody has that luxury because they might have students. So I think the timing of it is all sometimes difficult too.
I don't know that I see this type of stuff through our state group, because every state has their assistive tech center. And I don't think I see this from their advertising and from their website. So that could be a way to get this word out more, is by hooking up with those centers.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a voluntold task we could give to Mike, because he is the director of the New Jersey AT. So he has that contact group of being able to reach out to them. And I'm going to absolutely guess he shared it with them at some point, because that wouldn't surprise me, but kind of seeing what he has done so that the Washington people are sharing it with the state of Washington, and the California people are sharing it with the state of California. Now, whether it would trickle down to practitioners in the way that we want, we still, you know, I don't know. Anytime I think about doing change, I feel like it needs to be top down and bottom up in order for us to effectively get it, you know, done. I just know, you know, sometimes I find out about things in our state, like 2 weeks after they happen, or, that's just the nature of like, it just took too long to filter down. So I think it needs to be both. And I think the trickiest professionals to figure out how do we support are not the Sarah Gregory, but that position in, okay, 80% caseload, 20% AT, or 60-40 or whatever their mix is. I think that's a really hard, it's already almost impossible job. And then to be like, oh, I'm going to block out time for professional development. It's kind of like, no, I'm going to like do what I need to do to keep my head above water, not be able to block out time.
Yeah. Holly, you want to say something?
Yeah, and
Which mic's fire? Okay.
Very good.
sorry, we're actually, I'm in the same room as the AT tech team.
You're just hiding in the back. Yeah.
Yep. And so I thought I'd just go ahead and jump on and talk to you guys, and then I forgot that he's got the sound on up there, so we had some little feedback there.
No worries.
And I have mine pulled up separately just because I'm taking notes, so I was copying all the links and putting them in notes. So so that's what I was doing. But as far as I think that one of our teammates had seen Mike maybe at ATIA, or I think it must have been at ATIA, maybe that he must have spoke at ATIA, or she had done a training with Mike. And I had heard about Mike because he talked with Chris Nessie at the EdTech with Brian Friedlander. And that was the first time that I had heard about Mike. And then Mike had talked to, both times talked about the AT chat, and that's how we heard about it. But I don't believe that, I think what Irene said, I don't believe that we have, this wouldn't be on our state AT page either. Mm-hmm. So that's a good place maybe to talk about putting it.
I wonder, I was on the AT Act committee board in my state for many years, and I stepped down about 4 years ago. And it seemed like there was more of an emphasis on the adult population as opposed to K through 12. And so maybe that's one of the areas that they could pick up on at the state, at the national level, and trickle down, like you said, Alyssa, top down, and then see where bottom up goes. But they were meeting the needs of, especially, it was a heavy emphasis on adults. I know in our state, because I was on, they were very interested, and we had an Ed Camp Access, and they came and supported us and donated money for it. So they were very involved at the K through 12 level. But I do want hear that maybe that's not the case in other states.
I wonder, is something like the Assistive Technology Minute, that podcast, that's what, out of Indiana?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody like that would pick it up as something to mention during their podcast, that something like this exists.
Who does the 18-minute podcast?
It's the Easter Seals in Indiana, in Indianapolis. It's called your Assistive Tech Minute, I think. It's a podcast. Let me look it up and I'll tell you.
Maybe if it's in Indiana, we can lean on our Patton's friends to have I'm hoping they have a friend in that, or a connection to them.
And I do, I think again, the 0 to 22 emphasis is quite different from, the school-based AT is very different from outside of school. Yeah. And there is overlap in the, high school and beyond, but still it does look pretty different.
Yeah, I must feel like the AT Act people feel, and I'm making a gross generalization, but they feel like, okay, school system people are taking care of those kids. So our responsibility is 21, 22 and adults who need AT too. It's not like they have, but if we could work together and get them their tech from, birth to 22, then they wouldn't have as much to do. Sorry, Irene.
Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. I have a headache today. I was wondering how much we tap into the university population, like Sam Sennett, and I know the UW has a big assistive tech program, et cetera. How much, like, so that we're getting the fresh new minds coming out?
I'm sure the best answer is not enough.
Yeah. Sam was one of my students at Simmons, and look where he's gone. He's amazing.
Sam said it is it's crazy. I mean, he originally was one of the original developers of Proloquo before he sold it to Assistiveware.
I remember back at 2007 ATIA conference, I saw him there, and he said, he held up the iPhone. He said, "This is going to be the new communication device." Yeah. And that's what he did. He's great ideas. Yeah. But anyway, did you find out who does the 80-minute podcast?
Yeah, Easter Seals Crossroads is the flagship podcast, and it's called Assistive Technology Update. It's a 30-minute kind of news and interview program. It's hosted by Wade Wingler. He's the vice president of Easter Seals Crossroads, and it's been around since 2011. Then they have a spin-off of Assistive Technology Frequently Asked Questions, and then they have the Accessibility Minute. Different hosts do those other two. I have found it very intriguing because they invite companies, vendors to come in and talk about their products, as well as have discussions from other people in the AT field about what's going on. And it's been very fun. It's been great to listen to. So the assistive,
is it geared to all levels of need, or is it primarily school-based?
It's been all levels of need.
And it's been around since 2011.
System Technology Update.
I'll have to look into it.
And I think that might be a perfect place for us to end if anybody else has unless anybody else has anything else to add. I'm making a list of things for Mike to do. It's what happens anytime he asks us to take care of things for him. I'll make a long list of things for him to do. But any other thoughts for the good of the group?
I'm glad I was able to stop in. Great to see everybody.
Too.
Join us Wednesday night for actually, I won't be there for AT Chat. Mike will be, or
Kelly and I are doing it. Look out.
Yay, have fun. Yeah, I'm actually finally taking my staff out. I haven't been able to do it for a year. And I said, we got it. And Wednesday night was the only night that works for them. So I had to give up. So have fun. What's your topic? Whatever.
I got to talk with Kelly and we'll see. We had a couple good suggestions, some of it COVID related, some of it not. So we'll see. We'll make sure we get questions out sometime on Wednesday once we write them.
Yeah. Well, Mike and I always come up with the topic Wednesday morning. I can't even believe I asked you.
Come on now.
Oh, all right. See everybody.
Hey, have a
Bye.
good day. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Naomi, for